I don't even believe in the word fair because it's so arbitrary. What's fair? I'm not a fan of fair. I'm a fan of justice, and justice is everybody getting what they deserve.
Welcome to the Power Market Report. I'm Albert Liu. Happy to be joined once again by best-selling author Doug Casey. He's the author of Crisis Investing and also The International Man. He's got a new book out recently called Speculator, High Ground, and he joins me today from Aspen, Colorado. Doug, thanks very much for joining me today, and congratulations on this book. I've got my copy right here. It's a fabulous piece of work. Congratulations.
Well, thanks, Albert. I felt that there were a lot of things that could be said much better in fiction than can be said in nonfiction. There are some things that you actually don't dare say in nonfiction that you can get away with in fiction. So I really urge your listeners and viewers, I guess, to get a copy on Amazon. I think they're gonna be delighted. And let me apologize for the perhaps substandard audio and visual because I'm out on my ranch in Aspen, and it's got to be a satellite link, which minimizes quality.
No, it's quite all right. We can see you just fine, Doug. So I'm curious, actually, a little bit to know. I know a lot of people who have already read this book, but many of them tend to be of similar persuasion. I'm wondering if there's been any early feedback from people who were just interested in a good story and came across this morality tale, which I'm sure is going to happen many times in the future, but just early on. Has there been any feedback from people like that?
Interestingly, I haven't gotten any of it yet. But that is interesting. How does a meme in the form of the written word, a book, spread? I'm just not sure, but I'm anxious to find out, because when you write nonfiction, nonfiction and fiction are totally different genres. They have different agents, they have different publishers, different readerships. So I'm in terra incognita. We'll have to see. I know that in Ayn Rand's case, she sold vastly more fiction than nonfiction. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think if the statistics hold true, you're going to do even better than you have before in terms of sales and revenue. And incidentally, I'll just let the viewers know that Doug and I have spoken several times this year leading up to this book and then the big release at Freedom Fest. And just click the I if you're watching on YouTube on the top right-hand side, and I'm going to link up all of those interviews. You can go back after and check out those. I highly recommend it. But I think it's going to do very well. The early reviews on Amazon are outstanding. And so this book is about a young speculator. And when we talked last time, I asked you perhaps some of the inspiration from this character came from your own life or people you admire. You've been a speculator for a long time, and I just kind of want to dig into that. Speculating and also the concept of the entrepreneur. We have a situation now where it's kind of fashionable to be an entrepreneur, and I think part of what's happened is as a result of low interest rate policy by the Fed on the one hand and a very poor job market, a lot of investors have been pushed into speculating. And a lot of people who would have been happy working a job have been driven into the entrepreneurial realm. So I want to talk about that with you. I know you were a teacher at one point. What drove you to become an entrepreneur?
Well, that's interesting. After I graduated from college, which I never hesitate to say was a total misallocation, not a waste, but absolutely a misallocation of 4 years of my time and a whole bunch of my money. all I wanted to do was put together, at that time, $5,000 would have been quite adequate, because those were in the days when you could do Europe on $5 a day. That was actually a very popular book in the 60s and the 70s, Europe on $5 a day. You can't even get a cup of coffee in Europe now for $5 a day, much less live for $5 a day. So I thought if I could put together $5,000, not an ambitious amount of money, I would go off and seek my fortune in first South America, but Africa was really the place I wanted to go. So I started out teaching school, and that was just entirely too boring, because I was teaching school during the day and working as a bartender and a waiter at night. I figured that working two jobs and not having any time to spend any money would get me over the top quickly. But it's very, very hard to save money if you're on a salary. You're just not going to get anywhere. You're on a treadmill. So you've got to do something entrepreneurial, or you're going to get nowhere in life. I mean, that's my view.
Certainly the financial rewards are one reason. I remember something that you used to use on your old newsletter in the early days as a tagline. It was intensely curious, focused on facts, I believe was the tagline. Do you think curiosity is an essential component? And do you think it may have pushed you that way, in addition to the financial incentives?
Yeah, there's no question about that, Albert. And curiosity is, of course, the reason why I've always read a lot of books, because you can't gain all the knowledge that you need firsthand by experience. You gain a lot of it by reading, which is the second best thing. And you're not going to read unless you're curious about the world and the way it works. So absolutely correct. I mean, look, if there's anybody that's still going to school that's listening, I would counsel them to cut their losses early and figure out what they want to do. And if they can't figure it out, I would hit the road, because the argument I make is this, especially for going to Africa, and I don't think I said this in our last interview, it's that is the continent where opportunity is. There's going to be chaos in Africa, because in the years to come, the population of the African continent is going to double and triple. But the amount of wealth in the continent is not, because it is, these people have picked up all kinds of bad habits, the Europeans, and they have destroyed their local culture and so forth. But there's opportunity in chaos, number one. And number two, if you're an ordinary person from any other place in the world, doesn't matter where in the world you are, you have the same background and education and thought patterns and so forth as millions and millions of other people in your cohort do. But if you go to Africa, which is where nobody goes except to take a safari or something like that in the Serengeti or in South Africa, and that's not the real Africa, you're going to be on an on-level playing field. And the key to being a speculator is to make sure you're not on a level playing field. You want to be on a playing field that's tilted in your way, in your advantage. And when you're the only guy there who's not a local, everybody wants to meet you, talk to you, and within a week or 2 weeks, you can be sitting next to the president of the country. Why most people don't try to do that, I don't know. But that's the answer. You've got to go to where there's a non-level playing field. And Africa is the best place in the world for that today.
Doug, to your point about reading, I pulled an interesting quote from Charles Munger. This is Warren Buffett's colleague at Berkshire. He said, he has a couple great quotes about it. One is, "In my whole life, I've known no wise people over broad subject matter area who didn't read all the time. None, zero." There's another one, he says, "As long as I have a book in my hand, I don't feel like I'm wasting time." And finally, he writes, "I've gotten paid a lot over the years for reading through the newspapers. Certainly both of them have been paid quite a bit. We talk often about book smarts.
I've got to, he's absolutely right. And it's good that you quote him. I'm not a fan of Charlie Munger, incidentally. He's a genius investor, as is obviously Warren Buffett. I mean, they both have extremely high IQs, and they're two of the best investors that the world has ever seen. But, and I agree with them about reading the newspaper, because my favorite television series, probably of all time, was Have Gun Will Travel, which aired from 1957 to 1962. And at the beginning of it, you'd always find Paladin reading the paper in the lobby of the hotel in San Francisco, looking for an opportunity. And he'd find one, send his card out, and the adventure would start. So Munger's right about that. But you got to remember what Mark Twain said, too. He said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you're misinformed, especially today.
Yeah, that's right. What I was going to say is that people often talk about book smarts and street smarts. I know you're very book smart, and you're also street smart, but I think that these terms are misleading. I think a better way to describe those two types of intelligence, or smartness, if you will, is one pertains to understanding concepts, that's book smarts, and then the other one pertains to understanding people, what they want, how they'll act. It has nothing to do with the actual street per se. You put someone who can't do math on the street, they still can't do math. So the street has nothing to do with it, but understanding people, what they do, what they want, and how they react. Can you talk about those two things and how, I think you're going to say that both are important to be a successful speculator?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have as broad a range of knowledge as possible in order to be a speculator, because you look at the world, and if you don't have knowledge to interpret it, you're not going to see the opportunities. So you've got to have an understanding of science, I think, and technology. Most people have almost no knowledge of science or technology. They didn't like it in high school, and they never pursued it after that. I mean, I subscribe to several science magazines and try to keep up with reading them. I think that's very important. I think history is extremely important to give you a background. I'd say those are the two most important subjects, science and history. And I think that there's absolutely no substitute for travel to understand other cultures and so forth and see things. I mean, I can't emphasize enough that most people everywhere in the world act like medieval peasants. They're born in one place, they stay rooted to it, and that's a good survival strategy for a plant, but not for a human. So you've got to move around. So I don't know. That's my philosophy on education, and it's a mistake to sit in a classroom and listen to somebody of questionable qualifications lecture to you. First of all, you might cut the class, and you might fall asleep in the class even if you don't cut it. And if you don't fall asleep, your notes probably aren't going to be very good. And even if your notes are good, you might not read them. So there are much better ways to absorb information than going to a classroom. That's lowest on the totem pole, but it's what everybody does at great expense. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, Doug, funny story actually. There was a while back, maybe a year or two ago, I was trying to reach out to you on LinkedIn, and I saw a profile that matched your description, but I wasn't sure if it was you. There's sometimes phantom accounts or people with the same name. But under education, your profile says misallocated 4 years at Georgetown University. I was pretty confident at that point that I was adding the right person.
Right. And I use that description, Albert, because it kind of acts as a filter. The people that don't like that idea I don't want to meet them anyway. So it's perfect. It's a double-edged sword that cuts favorably both ways, keeping people away as well as drawing people to.
Yeah, exactly. So I like what you said, though, about accumulating knowledge, because what I've noticed is that the people who can really add value to a situation, whether it's speculating or something else, is people who can gather data, but not just simply gather and accumulate and then distribute it like a sponge, but people who can combine it with their own knowledge and experiences and actually turn the data into useful knowledge. That's kind of rare, and that you get by reading, studying the world, traveling, and those sorts of things, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good distinction you just made, I think, between raw data, which is absolutely everywhere. I mean, that your eyes and ears take in, that's all data, but it's meaningless. You've got to transform it into knowledge. And that's something that you can only do if you wired your mind to interpret it. Quite a good distinction. Yeah,
I've got a couple points here. I just want to go through one by one. Just get your quick thoughts on these. We've discussed curiosity. We've discussed smarts in the sense of abstract and interpersonal skills. Another thing I think that you have to have if you're going to be a speculator or an entrepreneur is you have to be okay with uncertainty. The person who goes to school, gets a job, has a defined career path, has much more certainty than someone who doesn't go that path. But you also have a certainty in a result that may be dissatisfying to the more adventurous of us. So you have to be okay with uncertainty. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, what was it that Helen Keller said something about that? You recall that she was the woman that was born deaf, dumb, and blind. And talk about having the odds tilted against you. And I think she said something to the effect, in her position, that certainty doesn't exist in the world. So if she could overcome a very bad deal, a very bad luck of the draw, it's shameful that most people seem unable to and just stay where they are.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point on luck. My feeling has always been that, well, clearly, based on just what you just said, that the world is not fair. Luck, people are not, do not start at the same point. But within similar classes of people, meaning people who grow up in the same place, go to the same schools, I think luck is pretty evenly distributed in those special cases. Yet you see tremendous disparity in success rates. And I think obviously there's more to it. There's making your own luck, or I guess improving the odds. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's also a good point, Albert. First of all, what you said about fair, that's true. I don't even believe in the word fair because it's so arbitrary. What's fair? I'm not a fan of fair. I'm a fan of justice, and justice is everybody getting what they deserve. And well, people don't always even get what they deserve, quite frankly. But the thing is, you may not get what you deserve, but let's say that you should at least deserve what you get. And you get that by preparing yourself for things and working and improving yourself and so forth. And I guess most people just don't do that. They kind of take what's dished out to them. I don't know. The world's not fair, but that's an advantage that most people are so passive. Because if you're not passive, that automatically tilts the odds in your favor. If I'm being clear.
I think so. Not being passive is absolutely key, because even if there is luck involved and things go your way, if you're not active, you'll just squander that opportunity. So I think that's a really good point, Doug. The next point is kind of interesting because I have written down here, not focused, on material wealth or comfort. Now, obviously, a lot of us go into speculation or entrepreneurialism because of the potential rewards, but if you're too focused on it, it's going to be difficult because you're going to have to endure probably some difficult times, some lean times. Can you talk about that, and then also add, can you tell us about times in your own life early on when you had to face some, I guess, difficult financial times?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because everybody knows that Warren Buffett lives in the same house that he purchased like 40 or 50 years ago, perfectly average middle-class house in Omaha, which is a nothing-nowhere city. Everybody knows that Sam Walton did the same, and he still drove an old pickup truck even after he was close to the richest man in the world. So I think it's very important not to become attached to material goods. I think that they went way too far. It's one thing to live below your means, which you have to in order to build capital. I mean, if you live above your means, you're never gonna have capital. And without capital, you can do nothing. But I think these guys took it to an extreme. But on the other hand, I'll tell you what I've found. It's that as I get older, I am much less attached to physical stuff. In other words, at a certain stage in everybody's life, they want to, if they're successful, they want that big house. They want that big car. They want, to live the high life of luxury. And I've done that, and it's fun, but it was just a stage I was going through. I think it's unseemly when people get into their 60s and beyond and still try to clutch the material universe to their withering breasts. I think it's better to detach from that more and more as you get older. So I guess to answer your question, I still work. I don't have to, but I still work because you got to fill those idle hours somehow. But oddly enough, although I talk about money all the time, I'm actually less interested in it on a personal basis than I've ever been in the past. It's just an element in the universe, but it's not something that I really care if I get more, other than for purposes of convenience. It makes things convenient. But, Buffett was right when I heard a speech that he gave a couple of weeks ago in New York, actually. And he said, I don't need $50 billion. I can't spend it. I don't want it. And, of course, his problem is that he doesn't want anybody to have $50 billion.
That is the problem.
But he's right. He's right. You don't really need that much. You've got to orient your mind so that it's not important. But, I'm talking too much here, but when I was listening to Buffett talk, he said he's a philanthropist. And I felt like saying, no, you're not, because giving away money to poor people doesn't make you a philanthropist. You're just pissing it away. It's like pouring water into the sands of the Sahara. It vanishes without a trace if you do that. If you really wanted to be a philanthropist and increase the well-being of his fellow men, he would keep compounding his money at 20% per year, which he's done forever, and that increases the amount of capital and wealth in the world, and everybody benefits from that. But most philanthropy today isn't philanthropy. It's just assuaging the guilt of psychologically damaged liberals. It's crazy. He had it entirely backwards. So anyway, that was a little tangent I wanted to go off on.
We could, Doug, we could do a whole talk on that, and I hope we will one day. Great points on wealth, and I think maybe in the case of Buffett going so far with it, maybe a little virtue signaling there. He does have a private plane, a corporate jet that he uses.
Yeah, you know what he called that plane? He called it the...
Indefensible.
When you first bought it, the indefensible, and now he calls it the... So the name of the plane went from the indefensible to the indispensable, which is rather clever. He's a clever guy. But, you know, at his age and wealth, I mean, it would be a huge misallocation of his time to fly commercial and hang around in airports and all this kind of nonsense.
Absolutely.
So he's quite correct.
Absolutely. Next point, Doug, is understanding the nature of opportunity. And this was a personal discovery of mine through running my own company, but also starting the show. Because when you have a channel and nobody knows who you are and you haven't done any shows, it's very difficult to get people to come on and be guests. But what I noticed was in the first year, had a number of high-profile guests, and they all had one thing in common. They were successful speculators, at least most of them. You have Casey, Rule, Rogers, people like that would just come on the show, even though I had very little to show at that point. And I think the lesson I took from that is some people understand that opportunity doesn't always present itself as opportunity, meaning you don't know that something is going to turn out to be a home run until you actually try it. And so these successful speculators tend to be more likely to try new things and not think too much about what's in it for me today or tomorrow.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you're going to get. So, you know, you can't chase after every opportunity, but if you've got the time and you never know. So, you know, that's part of being curious.
It is.
You're just wondering who it is that wants to talk to you, and you want to find out. Now, there are some people, after I talk to them, that it's pointless talking to them again. But not in your case. We always have a very enjoyable conversation, Albert.
We absolutely do, Doug. Here's the next point. We could go on any of these for a long time, but in the interest of time, the next point, I'll start with a quote by Sir Richard Branson. In his blog, he wrote, "Almost no one ever achieved anything worthwhile without help. To be successful in business, you need to connect and collaborate and delegate. And I think it's very helpful, if you're an entrepreneur, to have a sincere interest in people." And that's another thing I've noticed about some of these successful people that came on the show early. They share a sincere interest in people, and that helps you identify networking opportunities and opportunities for collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because everybody is born with a different skill set, a different deck of cards that you're just genetically given or not given at birth, and then you play them as best you can. I mean, I've always tended to be something of a one-man band. I'm not as a gamma rat. I tend not to relate well with people that think they're above me and want to give orders, and I don't relate too well with people that are below me that I have to give orders to. I don't like to either take or receive orders. I like to relate with people that I perceive as being co-equals. Now, that's just the way I'm wired, and I don't mind that. But it's a bit of a disadvantage. It means that it's hard for me to build an organization where I've got to, you know, tell other people what to do and so forth. But, you know, you find friends that you can relate to as equals, and they're good at these other things. So that's what specialization and division of labor is all about. And it doesn't just work in the economy, it works just between a small group of associates, too. So, yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, the one thing that I require with all my associates, it's not necessarily skills or experience or even intelligence. These are all very desirable things. What I require is good character, which isn't to say that I don't know lots of exotic people that don't necessarily have good character, but they're just good to talk to and pal around with, as opposed to actually do something with. Because if somebody's got bad character, forget about it as anything other than a casual relationship. So I think that's the overweening characteristic of your associates. Not these other things. Those are important. The character is critical. The sine qua non.
I couldn't agree more, Doug. In the past, you've also talked about mentoring, the importance of mentoring. I read an article not too long ago in Inc. magazine. They talked about 4 different types of mentors every person should have. And just brief description here. One would be the coach, one would be the cheerleader, one would be the challenger, and the 4th would be the connector. I've had the personal benefit of being connected by you to many people. You've sort of been my mentor in that way. Can you talk about your mentors, early mentors, even people you work with now?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I guess the best known guy that I learned a lot from was Harry Brown, who Harry died about 5 years ago, I guess, of Lou Gehrig's disease. And when I read his book, How to Profit from the Coming Devaluation, I read that book in 1970. I mean, it changed my life as much as reading Ayn Rand's book, Virtue of Selfishness, did. So Harry was one, and we got to be very good friends as time went on. After I met him. I met him in 1975. Who else? There was a good friend of mine, Bob Kephart. He's dead now, too, of course. All these guys are dead. Bob Bob was the first guy that actually paid me money to write an article. It was only $50, which wasn't a lot of money even then. But it was the first time that I did it. And it was like pulling teeth trying to write that short $50 article, because writing is a skill that you have to learn and practice. So Bob Kephart's another guy that I would mention. And there are guys that I've just met for short periods of time, just maybe a day. But the influence that they had on me and the ideas that they made me aware of just in one day, made them mentors. Like I remember there was a guy I met in Washington, D.C. named Yehuda Ben Yehuda, obviously an Israeli that was living there at the time. And he told me, how old was I? I must have been about 24 at the time. He told me, if you go to Ghana, well, he said the Gold Coast, actually, that's just what it was just shortly before that, and spend 5 years there, you'll have 5% of everything going into the country and everything going out of the country. And he said a lot of things like that. And I guess he's dead now, too. But sometimes people say these things and you just remember them. So they're mentors without even knowing it.
Those are the best ones, Doug. I think a lot of people misconstrue the word mentor to mean some type of office babysitter or something. But a lot of times what you're really getting is, in the case of Harry Brown, he not even on this list actually, is a kind of a philosophical inspiration. That can be a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would put Ayn Rand in that class. Unfortunately, I got to meet her a few months before she died, which I'm very happy about. But trouble is that all these people kick the bucket at some point. So, it's a circle of life, I guess.
It absolutely is. Doug, I regret that we're out of time. I could talk, I've got more notes, we could talk forever, but unfortunately I got to wind it up. I hope you'll come back, perhaps next month we can talk about the election and how that's going to affect markets, because I think it's going to be a wild November and December.
I'll make a prediction which I've been making this prediction for the last year. I think Trump is going to win. I don't necessarily support Trump. I certainly support him over Hillary, who's a total and complete disaster. She's just a minion of the deep state. But I think the average American is so unsettled now that they're looking for a revolution, and Trump is as close as you're going to get. And since the media and the establishment viscerally hate him, I think a lot of those people are going to turn out and vote for him. I think there's a chance that he's going to win. He's not going to save anything, I'm afraid, because he's got too many bad ideas. But the good news about Trump is that if he's elected, he's going to break all these people's rights bowls in Washington, D.C., and overturn a lot of apple carts. So I'll still say Trump is going to win, although I know the polls say he's not. And even the betting pools in Europe say that he's down about 5-1. But I still think he's going to win for a number of reasons. Well, we can talk about that and see if I'm right or wrong on it. I mean, I'm not a good political handicapper because I don't have my finger on the pulse of Lupus Americanus. I mean, how am I going to do that? I don't hang out with them. But that's an opinion for what it's worth, Albert.
Yeah, no, I see where it's coming from, and the polls, I don't think you can trust them. We saw in Brexit, people just don't know. So thank you for that. Let's definitely get together in November. I want to part by saying go out and get this book. I really enjoyed this book. Everyone I know who's read it has enjoyed it. You can get it now, finally, at Amazon.com. So please do that. Doug, thank you very much for joining me once again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure was mine, Albert. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Albert Liu, host of the Power and Market Report. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking the button on the top left of the screen. And don't forget, you can also visit us on Facebook and at powerandmarket.com. Thanks again for watching.